enough, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Well, everywhere you turn these days, there's some U.S. attorney in a medical marijuana state sending out a threatening letter. We're going to talk a little bit about this here in the Radical Rant. It's Obama's war on cannabusiness. Not cannabis, but cannabusiness. The Phoenix New-Times reported about the U.S. attorney in Arizona, Dennis Burke, sending a letter about Arizona's voter-approved medical marijuana law, saying federal agents may bust anyone participating in large pot-growing operations. In a recent letter to Will Humble, the director of the State Department of Health Services, Burke reiterates that the feds will look the other way when truly sick people use marijuana, but that the patient's suppliers might be inviting trouble. Burke compounds the schizophrenic stance by stating that federal law, quote, may be vigorously enforced against those individuals and entities who operate large marijuana production facilities. Individuals and organizations, including property owners, landlords, and financiers, end quote, face legal problems, including seizure of their property and other assets. The problem is, Burke gives no definition of the word large. And this continues with the story that we got in Colorado here with the U.S. attorney there sending out more of these threatening letters. In this situation, Tom Raines, the executive director of the Colorado District Attorney's Council, said the letter from John Walsh, the top federal prosecutor in Colorado, the U.S. attorney, shows the federal government is running out of patience with Colorado and the other states that have hundreds of dispensaries and tens of thousands of medical marijuana users. He said the government previously stated that it would not make it a priority to go after terminally ill people using marijuana. However, the proliferation of marijuana patients has forced the federal government to take a closer look at the industry. Well, from coast to coast, and I mean literally coast to coast, from Washington to Rhode Island, and here now we've got Colorado in between, and Arizona, President Obama's U.S. attorneys are sending out these threatening letters to squash all attempts to provide safe, regulated access to cannabis for medically qualified individuals under state law. The DEA has conducted raids in California, Washington, Nevada, Montana, and Michigan. The IRS is investigating the largest, most successful, and best-run medical cannabis dispensaries in California. Is anyone still convinced that Mr. Obama is some sort of friend to medical cannabis? Are there anybody out there that still thinks, just you wait till the second term? Are you really still out there? Because President Obama said he would not waste scarce federal resources going after sick people and their caregivers.
When it comes to medical marijuana, I have more of a practical view than anything else. I mean, my attitude is that if it's an issue of doctors prescribing medical marijuana as a treatment for glaucoma or as a cancer treatment, I think that should be appropriate, because there really is no difference between that and a doctor prescribing morphine or anything else. I think there are legitimate concerns in not wanting to allow people to grow their own or start setting up mom and pop shops, because at that point it becomes fairly difficult to regulate. And you know, again, I'm not familiar with all the details of the initiative that was passed and what safeguards there were in place, but I think the basic concept that using medical marijuana in the same way with the same controls as other drugs prescribed by doctors, I think that's entirely appropriate.
Federal law, of course, still considers it a controlled substance, right. And there have been attempts from Washington to punish doctors.
Yeah, I mean, I would not punish doctors if it's prescribed in a way that is appropriate. That may require some changes in federal law. I will tell you that I mean, I want to be honest with you, whether I want to use a whole lot of political capital on that issue when we're trying to get health care passed or end the war in Iraq is
I'd like to know
the likelihood
we
of that
didn't
being
get
real
much in
high on
healthcare, and the war in
my
Iraq
list
still is going on. Okay, go
it's
on.
not likely.
But it's safe to say you wouldn't be.
What I'm not going to be doing, what I'm not going to be doing is using Justice Department resources to try to circumvent state laws on this issue, simply because I want folks to be investigating violent crimes and potential terrorism. We've got a lot of things for our law enforcement officers to deal with.
Yeah, okay, so that's the excuse that we heard, that he wouldn't use scarce federal resources to circumvent state and federal laws, but that is exactly what you're doing with the U.S. attorneys and these letters. You're trying to circumvent the state and federal laws that people are putting together to get medical cannabis to the people who deserve it, and there is no hiding from that. Furthermore, your Justice Department said that you would not be targeting anyone who is in clear and unambiguous compliance with the state and federal laws.
Licks after the inauguration and stepping up abuses of prisoners. And then a second thing on drugs policy. Right after the inauguration, there were some raids on California medical marijuana dispensaries. Was that a deliberate decision by you, by the Justice Department? Is that a prediction of policy going forward? Do you expect those sorts of raids to continue? No, I what the president said during the campaign.
Well, what the president said during the campaign, you'll be surprised to know, will be consistent with what we will be doing here in law enforcement. He was my boss during the campaign. He is formally and technically and by law my boss now. And so what he said during the campaign is now American policy.
Will not target those in clear and unambiguous compliance with state law. Now, the raids in Spokane might slip through that unambiguous loophole, since Washington's law doesn't specifically authorize dispensaries, and threatening letters to, say, Oakland regarding their mega-grow facilities might address the fact that the authorization for such facilities isn't clear under California law. However, Mr. Obama reveals the true intentions to stifle development of any viable legal cannabis distribution industry by sending threat letters to Rhode Island and Arizona and Colorado, states that have created clear and unambiguous laws for medical cannabis providers to follow. It's obvious that Mr. Obama isn't opposed to medical cannabis per se, but terribly opposed to medical cannabusinesses. Politicians, and Mr. Obama is the consummate politician, realize the argument over medical marijuana is over. Polls consistently show for a decade now there's at least 2-to-1 support for medical marijuana across the country. And he even made it a point in his campaign to refer to his mother's battle with cancer and the dysfunctional U.S. healthcare system. So he's got to reiterate that he supports the grandmas smoking a doob if they want to get relief from nausea from chemotherapy.
There's a new way to watch 60 Minutes.
And so where would Sasha and Malia's grandma get that cannabis? From a well-run, secure store that's an adults-only facility that verifies the medical cards?
Died of cancer at 53. In those last painful months, she was more worried about paying her medical bills than getting well. I hear stories like hers every day. For 20 years, Washington's talked about healthcare reform and reformed nothing. I've got a plan to cut costs and cover everyone. But unless we stop the bickering and the lobbyists, we'll be in the same place 20 years from now. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message because to fix healthcare, we have to fix Washington.
Yes, but now Sasha and Malia's grandma, if she were alive today, if she were in a medical marijuana state battling cancer, would not be able to get her medical cannabis from this well-run, established facility that's authorized under state law. Instead, Mr. Obama, you'd be sending your mom out to troll Craigslist or some alt weeklies or visit an activist meeting, hoping she can find a kind grower, hoping that he grows a strain that works for her, hoping this guy will provide clean and safe medicine reliably and consistently. She's got to hope the guy doesn't offer, hey, I'll give you an ounce a month for $300, and she's got to take it because she's got no other choice. She's got to hope that she's got a way to get to this guy's house because she sure as hell doesn't want to give him her particular address where she lives. And if she needs a tincture or edibles or some other kind of preparation, she's got to know how to do it herself because she might not be able to find a grower that can do that. Is that the change that Sasha and Malia's grandma can believe in? The opposition to large cannabis businesses is understandable, if you put aside your compassion for Grandma Obama and think like a prohibitionist who believes that marijuana is a deadly dangerous Schedule I drug that leads to cocaine, meth, heroin, and the end of Western civilization. Because if a large cannabis establishes itself, people will become accustomed to safe, secure, well-run businesses that deliver consistent, reliable, tested cannabis products. They'll appreciate the way that these places revitalize their sagging economies and provide jobs and contribute taxes to budget-starved localities. They'll realize that all that scaremongering by the government about what would happen if marijuana was legal, even for sick people, was hysterical propaganda. They'll begin to wonder, why don't we just legalize cannabis for everyone and create more jobs and more revenue and use these established businesses as the distribution points? But most concerning for a politician, these cannabis businesses will form PACs, political action committees, and start delivering support and financing to pro-legalization candidates in primary elections. And you just know Barack Obama and the $19.5 million in campaign cash he got from the healthcare industry in 2008 can't let that happen. All right, folks, thanks for joining us here for Hour 1. And in Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, we got more great stories to cover. We're going to talk about Osama bin Laden. Could he have been a pot smoker? Oh my gosh. And more news from Colorado, plus Ganja John with some talk about 2-year-olds and hash. This is going to be good. So stick around for Hour 2. For those of you listening on the podcast, thanks for joining us. For Cannabis Carrie, Ganja John, Kaliko the Intern, I'm Radical Russ for the Normal Foundation. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.